Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
In the studio with us today, my partner in something, I'm not quite sure, but John Adams is here in the studio with us. Welcome, John.
Thanks, Bob.
And a special guest is with us today who I just met. We've had a little bit of time to chat before the show. Phil Shouse is with us. Phil, welcome to the show.
Bob, John, thanks for having me on the show.
Hey, it's good to have you here. Let's start with, first of all, hey, you're a musician. That's why you're in Nashville. How'd you get started?
Well, I've been in Nashville almost 18 years now, which at this point makes me native.
Not quite the unicorn that we know that they're here, the natives. But
I know two of them.
Yeah.
But into music, I fell in love with rock and roll as a, single digit kid, 3 and 4 years old. My older brother's record collection is what introduced me. And I just got into different things and started playing. His drum set was my first instrument at 4 years old, my feet dangling off the drum throne and can't reach the pedals, playing along to Aerosmith records. This is in the late 70s. And then started playing saxophone in school band and played that all through college. Picked up guitar around age of 13 and just kind of, did the thing and went to college for different majors. And I think I changed majors every semester. Didn't get very far with that at all. But, was always serious about music and wanted to do it. At the time, I didn't have the tools to do it. Nobody that I knew or played with did either. So it just kind of, moved around a lot, band to band to band, project to project. And Nashville was my last ditch effort. It was like, all right. And I only lived in North Alabama, so I was 2 hours away. So it was an easy drive back and forth. It wasn't like a cross-country move. So I was like, all right, here it is. This is it. If this doesn't work, I'm doing something else. I don't know what that something else would have been.
Haven't gotten there yet.
Haven't gotten there yet. So luckily I didn't have to really do that. But it's been great. 18 years. I can't believe it.
Who were your musical influences growing up?
The first one was Aerosmith at a really young age. And then the next thing that hit me was the Beatles, and I was 10 when that was going on, and that completely encompassed my life for the next 3 years. I got the Red Album first, but it was Seeing a Hard Day's Night, and that's what got it. It had to hit me like a kid that saw it in theater in '64. It had to.
Yeah.
I was obsessed. I wanted to dress like that, talk like that, act like that. It completely took over my life. And then that ruled my life until I heard Van Halen in '88. And then that changed everything. And then I'm a classic rock guy. Kiss obviously is a huge thing for me. I'm sure we'll get into that later on, playing with Gene and Ace. But I listen to a little bit of everything, and I've been in funk bands, played with country people and country artists in Nashville, and, just doing my thing and making it work in as many places that I can.
When you talk about being in Nashville, 18 years now, when I moved here, it was 98. And I had actually set foot in Nashville back in 87. And it was a totally different town back then. You didn't go in the Gulch, which is now the real hip area to be.
You didn't cross the river to East Nashville at all when I first moved here. You didn't go over there.
Lower Broadway was a good place to get jumped. Mm-hmm. And the city's changed dramatically. You've obviously seen that change. From a music scene standpoint, and we talked about this before the show, we're getting ready to see the Mercy Lounge go through another iteration, at least close its doors for a while. But how has the scene changed for you?
It's widened. It's gotten a lot broader because as I moved here in '04, and for those of you who can't see me listening, I've got long hair. And I dress, I dress a certain way. And
you look like Steve Morse.
I've heard that. I've actually been called Steve leaving Deep Purple shows. So I got work with guys, with country artists, because when I moved up here in 2004, I was kind of the odd man out in that area, in that field of music, kind of. Because they were looking for, rock and roll gunslinger guitar players instead of chicken picker guys, which I still can't play country music at all, even though I did that for 10 years. I can do Southern rock very well, and that's what I got hired for. But as the years went on, more rock people, more hip hop people, more music people started moving to Nashville. And that, of course, is going to expand everything. And with it, it becomes, you get better restaurants and the traffic gets worse and everything like that. With a bigger city, rent goes up, cost of living goes up. So yeah, even in the past 18 years, I think it really started happening at the flood was in 2010, the rebuilding of the flood kind of was the renaissance. Yeah, I think.
It did change the footprint. And when you talk about restaurants, I mean, now it's all fine dining and we've got anything and everything. Back then it was meat and three.
Yeah,
or
exactly.
Shoney's.
Yeah, you do. I'm trying to think of the steakhouse. This by Vanderbilt. Fleming's. You're going to have had Fleming's, and then now it's like 15 good steakhouses to choose from. Yeah. I'm not complaining about that. The traffic does kind of suck, but it's just changed. You can't stop it.
And we've lost Music Row, I think, for the most part. That's disappeared, or at least it's kind of fractured and fragmented into Berry Hill and Franklin and Hendersonville. It's not all encompassed in a 4-block radius like it used to be.
Right. And how is it just 2 blocks now is protected?
Yeah.
There's not much of it, so it's all kind of knocked down. Yeah.
And they're all becoming historical buildings now, so they're not so much working entities now. They're more of kind of like a historical, hey, here's a museum, let's go through RCA Studio B type thing.
They used to record music here.
Yeah, they actually did. Yeah, a guy named Elvis and a couple others.
Yeah.
Phil, when you mentioned a moment ago that you played with some country artists, if memory serves, you told me a story about you played with Rodney Adkins. Mm-hmm. And I think you said something along the lines of, he said, you can dress the way you like, play as loud as you want, we don't care, and you were sold after that. Is that true?
Yeah, I was really lucky where I played for artists that did that. Like my first gig was with David Lee Murphy, and not ever a word of, no, you can't play that guitar. I mean, it was bell bottoms and it was a Les Paul at my knees playing through a Marshall. And that was how it was with every gig. Chris Cagle was the same way. I got hired for this. It wasn't like, we need you to change everything. I got hired because they liked me. And with Rodney, it was the same. I played with Rodney for 6 years. That was my longest country gig.
Sweet.
I was lucky.
How did those come about? Were you looking for them? Did they find you?
Kind of found me. The first one was with David Lee Murphy, and that was in 2005. And his manager had seen me playing with this rock band I was playing with called The Taste, not Rory Gallagher and The Taste, just The Taste. We were playing at like some festival they used to have in Nashville on the pedestrian bridge at like 1 p.m. on Sunday afternoon, like primo slot, right? And he saw me there, and it turns out that the guy he was talking to was a record label guy, and he was trained by my girlfriend at the time. And she overheard, she's like, well, that's my boyfriend. So that's how I got that audition with David Lee Murphy. It was kind of a crazy story.
Wow.
But after that, it was just word of mouth. It was like, oh, well, that guy does that thing real well. Let's call Phil. So I got the Chris Cagle gig from that, and then other ones in between there too. But those are my main like longer standing gigs. And then Rodney was the same way.
As long as it wasn't chicken picking.
Exactly. It's like I have one chicken picking lick. I still have it, and I would pull that out sometimes. But yeah, it was pretty much just they wanted Skinner, Allman Brothers, kind of Southern rock gunslinger type thing, which I can do. And that was what they wanted.
Also, you mentioned the Beatles a few minutes ago, and I remember that from your presentation at the Wind Down a couple years ago, just before COVID.
Right.
Phil went and did a little presentation, had to tell his life story, basically.
This is my life.
Since then, he's occasionally does this Beatles brunch, and I believe the girl is Monica
Llewellyn.
And it's fantastic if you ever get a chance if they keep doing those. Mm-hmm. So I didn't know you were a huge Beatles fan until that night, but you said something also about another influence about Van Halen, and I've stolen this line. I think you said during that presentation, you said the first time you heard Van Halen 1, it sounded like the music was coming from the walls.
Yeah.
And that's the best description, especially just the beginning of Eruption or anything. It's a wall of sound. It's coming from the walls, all encompassing. And if I might try to trademark that, actually.
That's the only record I can think that's like that I've heard, that it just sounds like it's coming out of the paint. It's like it's in the air. It's just not coming out of the speakers. Amazing. It's just coming from everywhere. Yeah, it's incredible.
And since we're talking about Van Halen, more of a rock theme,
I have a funny Van Halen line for finance. When I worked with John and his finance company. He helps me out a lot. And we're talking about moving my money from a 401k to a Roth IRA, and I said, "Well, it isn't a Hagar IRA." So that's my.
Or what was the other guy's name?
Sharon.
Yeah,
Sharon IRA.
It's not a Sharon IRA.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Van Halen 3, not very appreciated in the community.
It is an underappreciated record for sure.
It's interesting. I was telling Bob about this before you came. We probably would have never met if it weren't for Eddie Trunk.
Right.
And I've never met Eddie Trunk. Hope to some. Actually, that's not true. He signed a book for me at a UFO show. I'm sure he remembers.
You're talking about the UFO?
The UFO at a show in...
Eddie is the biggest UFO fan on the planet.
My gosh.
It was at Boulder Station in Vegas.
I thought I was the only guy that ever saw them.
Yeah, I've seen them twice, and the first time was in 1979. And had not seen them since until about 8 years ago in Vegas. It was right after Eddie's first book was finished. So it was in that time frame. But on that metal show, he mentioned the best tribute band that he'd ever heard was called the Rock and Roll Residency in Nashville. And I'd never stepped foot in this town until 2015. And I was looking just through the shows in town or something on Google, and it said the Residency's playing on Tuesday night. And I'm in town. Till Thursday.
It's early.
So I went, and I didn't make it for the beginning. I just remember when I showed up, there was a guy pretending to be Mick Jagger doing a song with you guys.
Lewis. Yeah.
Then you guys took a break, and then they came out and did a Van Halen medley, Dirty Movies, Center Swing, into Drop Dead Legs. And
3 songs you don't hear every day.
since this is
More album cuts than single.
That was what we did, yeah.
Since this is a G-rated show, I will not say what reaction I had at that time. And then, once I got home, Googled, and I found his email address, and I sent an email. I didn't know it was to you. It just said to the Rock and Roll Residency, because I used to do, and we'll do again, a pretty large Toys for Tots event. And I said, hell, I might try to hire these guys, because the band I have every year, they're terrible. They used to be really terrible. Now they're just terrible.
They've gotten better.
Yeah,
and
improved.
Good.
They've come up in the world.
Good for those guys.
And Phil made a terrible mistake. He replied. So he's been stuck with me pretty much ever since. And, I've talked about this in other podcasts. The relationship and what I do is more important to me than the actual investments and things. And I'd like to think of Phil's a pretty good friend now, and he still returns my calls and texts. So
You haven't learned yet, have you?
Yes, I still do. Not yet. Not quite yet.
But that's how we met. And I think he had, without going too much into his business, I think he had a little bit from one of your former employers that actually did something very good for you and helped you set up a 401k or something. And that's how we started talking business.
Yep.
And one of the things that several people told me when I came to town was, when you start working with these musicians, you just got to be prepared. They don't think like everybody else. They don't do things on a schedule. They're left-brained or something. I know it's Bob's term, and you're probably working in a right-brain world. And to a large extent, that's been true. I've noticed that, with the one exception, this guy right here, Phil. Because if Phil says he's going to be somewhere at 2 o'clock, he's there at 2 o'clock.
1:55 probably.
And that's nice. So, that's one of the things I've enjoyed working with him because of. But also, we'll talk a teeny little bit about what we do for folks like Phil with Money Concepts in a few minutes. But I wanted you to continue a little bit on your story, because, we haven't gotten into your playing with Gene and Ace from Kiss, because, you're a huge Kiss fan. I remember last year you did the Kissmas show, which I enjoyed, and some of your other projects.
Let me break in here real quick. How did you get connected with Gene and Chris?
So Gene was through Ryan Cook. who is one of my best friends, and he is a bandmate was in Gene's band and now Ace's band. So Ryan had a band called Big Rock Show that played on every Kiss cruise. And probably this is about 7 or 8 cruises into it. On one of the cruises, Gene asked Ryan to have lunch with him. And that was when he asked him to put together a band for him doing solo shows. And it was going to be for like 5 solo shows, not much. And then Ryan said, I've got the guys right now. So that's how that happened. And then so we did one corporate gig in early 2017 in Canada, this big kind of CEO convention. It wasn't really in front of Kiss fans. Then we played in Cleveland at the Agora Ballroom.
Oh, yeah.
And then that was the first one in front of Kiss fans, and we destroyed the internet. People couldn't believe the show. We were playing all these super deep cut Kiss songs and really getting the best out of Gene and getting the best out of all of us, and really, really did well. And it turned into 2 years of international work. And then so that led to the Ace gig, because towards the end of 2018, we did Australia with Gene and Ace. We backed up both of them. And so that was how that worked out. And because we just kind of were there, and instead of Ace flying his band all the way to Australia and then Japan after that, he asked Gene, he said, "What, your guys know all the songs, and can I use your guys?" And it was like, well, if it's okay with them, it's okay with me. So that all that was worked out. I wasn't in on any of that stuff, but it ended up, we played with both of them, and then we ended up getting the Ace gig. So I'm still with Gene's playing with his other band, Kiss, and I'm still playing with
the other band, the part-time gig.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, we're still doing Ace gigs, starting back in a month and a half, I guess.
Will you guys be able to meet and greet with the fans this time? Or I know last time you kind of had to keep your...
The Alice tour was in a bubble. We really couldn't get out much. And we did... I think Ace did meet and greets. We did a handful of shows after that tour, and I believe Ace did meet and greets on those. So I'm not sure. Consult acefairley.com for more information.
This is Amira Alvarez, the founder and CEO of The Unstoppable Woman. Thanks for joining me with host Bob Bender on The Business Side of Music, my favorite music business podcast.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Hi everyone, I'm Larry Butler, and I want to send you a free digital copy of my new book, The Singer-Songwriter Rulebook, 101 Ways to Help You Improve Your Chances of Success. That's right, everything you need to know to launch your career as a singer-songwriter, all based on my 40 years in the live performance arena, and believe me, I've seen it all. In my book, you'll find the 10 things you have to deal with before even thinking about becoming a singer-songwriter performer. You'll also learn about the 5 things every singer-songwriter can do this weekend to make their live show better. 5 things I can guarantee that you are not doing already. Plus, there's tips on songwriting and staging, photo and video shoots, publishing, merch, dozens of other topics, all written for people who don't particularly like to read. And again, it's free. Just go to the Business Side of Music website homepage and look for my book cover. Click on it, and a free digital copy of my book will be yours. I'm Larry Butler, and I approve of this message.
Whether you consider yourself a musician or not, music is all around us, and it affects our everyday lives. Whether it's background music influencing our shopping habits in a store, organ music adding the vibe to a baseball game, or a playlist convincing us to keep going on that last mile of a run. I'm Mindy Peterson, host of the podcast Enhance Life with Music, where we take a holistic look at music's benefits through the lens of science and medicine, entertainment, and business. You can find me and Enhance Life with Music at mpetersonmusic.com/podcast or wherever you get your audio.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
It's a strange new world that we're all living in with this nasty little booger called COVID. It's really kind of turned our world upside down. And I obviously want to talk about merch at one point, because that's a big factor, because we're not all out on the road touring these days. It's all kind of, I remember when this first came about, it was, let's do a little FaceTime concert, we'll do something, on Zoom, and it was a bit of a time of adjustment. Do you see it getting better? I mean, countries like Australia, are they letting anybody in at all at this point to entertain?
I know there was an announcement because I follow.
They're obviously not letting
friends.
Tennis players in
Exactly,
right now.
right. Yeah, tennis players, certain tennis players.
Yes.
I saw an announcement, I don't know, maybe it was about a month ago, so anything could have changed, that did say they were going to start letting international acts in. I don't know if that's changed yet. I'm scheduled to go to Europe for festival season in May with Accept. So right now, it's still on.
Yeah.
We're all crossing our fingers that we still get to do that.
I think this is the end of it, it's my opinion, because it's so contagious and it's mild. No, I don't want to catch it.
Really mild. I still have not got it. Knock on wood, knocking on wood, but I've not got it.
One of the things I'm trying to do with this business venture, working with musicians, like-minded folks and their friends, is focus them on what I think their most important asset is, which is not necessarily their physical assets, their mutual funds, their stocks, their bonds, but their most important asset is themselves. And I think that actually probably applies to all of us. I think we need to think that way. And when I first met Phil and told him the story, he got back to me and I learned a little bit more about him. He was way ahead of the game because he has several other ventures. The one that comes to mind first is Mutt Merch, and I'll let him go into that. But one of the things I think is important is to have folks like Phil, these working musicians, is to do things to take advantage of their likeness when they're in the public eye. Strike while the iron's hot. So can you tell us a little bit about Mutt Merch and maybe anything else you're working on like that?
Sure. Mutt Merch has been around for over 5 years now, and it's a dog and music-themed merchandise company. We have fun with band names and like Black Labbath, Bones and Noses, Aerosniff, the Beagles, Def Shepherd. You get the idea.
Do you know that we call this studio here Music Dog Studio?
No, I don't. I do now. That's
Music
great.
Dog Studio.
I met Buddy. Have not met Lucy yet.
Yeah.
So, Buddy greeted me at the door. Fantastic. So it's mainly it's T-shirts and other things, dog tags and pet bowls, but we do shirts for humans and dogs, so you can match with the logos on them. And it's muttmerch.com is the store, and I also have an Etsy store, also Mutt Merch. And I was always impressed with when I learned that musicians, when a famous musician would have some other business. Of course, Gene is the king of that.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So he was the first one, but then you learn about Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull is a millionaire with fisheries, and he just tours because now he likes to do it. And of course, he makes good money, but that's the bulk of his income right there. And there's a bunch of others too. That was always impressed me when you learned that somebody was actually smart. Instead of, I think the stigma of burnout stoner person is kind of done. There's a lot of highly intelligent people doing this, and they're business people. Their skills are a different set besides being a CEO. It's a lot different. It's a lot different skill set. So that always impressed me, and I kind of wanted to do that. And it's becoming a lot more common now because so many people have coffee. Like, Michael Anthony has hot sauce. Joe Perry has hot sauce. Dragan, a friend from Sweden's a big guy over there. He has his own beer. And is a painter, designs furniture. So it's always good to see people realizing that you don't have to just do this. You can do other stuff and it's fine. You don't lose any cred, or whatever thing people think.
And I think the whole sex, drugs, and rock and roll is not. It's changed.
Backstage is so much different now. It's just laptops and,
and there's the little coffee bar and little couches to take naps on before the show.
Yeah, it's a different scene for sure, but it's a healthier scene and
and probably better off in that aspect.
I mean, for me, it's great. And the way technology is right with now, you can run another business while on the road. You can take, I'll get into this. I haven't really talked about this, but my new venture is a non-alcoholic beverage company. And it's be American, Sweden, and Australia, or where it's centralized. I've got people there and people in Australia that I'm working with on this, and haven't really talked about it with anybody yet. And so now, we can have conferences. It's tough to schedule a time with those 3 time zones, but the ability's there. You can do it. So on the road, I can still do all this stuff. I can run Mutt Merch from the road. I can help run this from the road also. So it lends itself on. Now I can run it with what's in my hand right now, my phone. It's incredible what you can do,
It's a lot different when, I was out on the road. I remember back in 89, I was on a tour and I carried an Apple IIc computer in a Halliburton suitcase with a dot matrix printer.
Print out day sheets and everything.
Yeah,
right.
Oh my gosh. And now you're right. You can do it all. The apps are on your phone. And
it's incredible. If forever it was, what's your plan B? What's your plan B? I didn't have a plan B, but now it's so much easier to have a plan B or just two plan A's. You can have two simultaneously. You can do your music and then you can run something on the road with your phone. It's amazing the ability you have.
I like that. You can have two plan A's at the same time. Who would have thunk?
I know.
It sounds like a corporate name.
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
Trademark.
Yeah. You heard it here first, folks.
Phil, have you seen your exposure increase dramatically since you've been with Gene and Ace and Accept? Because when we first met, that stuff had not happened yet.
Yeah, when the Rock and Roll Residency started doing some cruises, you get a worldwide audience on those cruises. So they go home and they start on social media. So that's where it grew first. And then it really has from the Gene, Ace gigs and Accept. So, and I'm consistent with posting. I try to stay on top of that with just different things. And even if I don't have anything going on, just doing a random, hello there post. So it's important.
I'm gradually getting into the 20th century with social media. Granted, I know we're in the 21st.
I mean, it's the 90s. I mean, come on. Yeah.
But I have a daughter that I occasionally will say, creep on Phil's Facebook page, so I don't have to call him and say, what shows do you have lined up?
Yeah. But that's a great way to reach your audience is social media. So if you do have a product or something that you're developing, you can get directly to your people.
In my business, we have so many rules, compliance-wise. For example, anything I'd want to put on social media has to be screened first. So the spontaneity is gone. But we've gotten a lot better. It's one thing I like about Money Concepts. We will generally, they're trendsetters. We went into social media long before any other financial planning firms did. Mm-hmm. So I think that's important, and I just have to get on the train eventually.
We'll really see. Is. You can't become totally wrapped up with it and spend all your day scrolling, but if you do your stuff on there and interact a little bit, it's very helpful.
I think one of the other things we're starting to see these days is that this is a business, and it's not let's just go out and as I said earlier, it's not sex, drugs, and rock and roll anymore. This is a business, and it's a very competitive business, and the profit margin has shrunk dramatically compared to what it used to be, and it's tightened up a lot, and it's a lot more difficult to make money. And in that aspect, it's difficult to save money, too, and difficult to create that kind of that investment portfolio that you need, because it's not going to last forever.
Right. And that's the thing when you're a hired gun like me, every gig you have is going to end. There's going to be a change with the band. Your artist is going to retire or slow down or die.
Yeah.
And every gig you have is going to end. So if you're not building something for yourself, whether it's music related or not music related, you're really doing yourself a disservice, and you're kind of screwing yourself for the future, because you're going to be out of work at some point. And we all learned that 2 years ago. Hard.
Literally overnight.
Yeah. Everything went away. My 2019 was absolutely crushed. 2019, my best year exponentially ever. And 2020 was going to be the same exact thing. And we all learned that nothing is for sure.
We had a guest on the show, Ray Amico, who's worked with Dream Theater and several other acts, and he was down in South America and just killing it. Was on a great tour. It was doing really, really well. And then COVID hit down there. And the band he was with was from Europe. So he had to get them home into Europe. Of course, Europe was closing its doors long before we were. So he had to go through all of those hoops to get them back safely home. And then he had to get here. And by the time he got here, the tornado had come through Nashville and literally wiped out everything he owned that was in a storage shed.
Oh, my God.
You talk about your world being turned upside down. He said he and his wife just looked at each other and they packed up the car and they just drove out to Palm Springs, because they had nothing left here.
What else are you going to do?
Yeah, what else are you going to do?
Nashville got the double whammy. because everything shut down. We had a show booked and we canceled it at the 0 hour. And the tornado had just hit, I think, the weekend before everything totally shut down. So none of the rebuilding efforts could really go on straight away. So yeah, we got hit hard.
Yeah. And it hit everybody's pocketbook all at once. And a lot of people weren't prepared, and they're still trying to recover from that.
Hi, this is Ray Amico. Join us as we have a look beyond the mics and lights here on the business side of music.
You're listening to the business side of music.
As a musician, you have a dream, that vision of what success looks like for you. Though it's not only about the money, money is part of it. Whether you've been extremely successful or you're just striving to maintain a regular cash flow, you need a plan. Money Concepts can help you develop a customized plan to achieve the financial stability and success you want. For over 40 years, Money Concepts has been providing holistic financial planning services to individuals, families, and business owners. As an independent firm, Money Concepts and their associates are committed to always represent the best interest of the client. It's really about a committed, benevolent interest in them personally. This independence, coupled with that committed, benevolent interest, means they represent you, the client, not a product supplier. It's not about selling products, it's about helping you achieve success. To learn how this can benefit you, contact my buddy, John Adams, with Money Concepts at 737-867-9309. That's 737-867-9309. You can also email John at jadams@moneyconcepts.com.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Well, Phil, one of the things I want to speak with you about today is, how we got started talking shop. And it goes back to that first show I mentioned earlier and then me sending you an email. And one of the things that I remember when we had one of our first face-to-face conversations was you said something along the lines of, why are you talking to me? Why aren't you trying to talk to somebody way up?
Right.
Or something like that.
So many people know.
And,
do you have any idea who I think I am?
Yeah, I used to be.
Yeah. And I went to, I think one of my rules, and it's a rule that I still have today with all my clients, is I'll work with anybody as long as they're nice. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean we won't ever have serious discussions or disagreements occasionally on things, but as long as they're nice. And one of the things, I've kind of learned coming to Nashville the last several years is how poorly paid some of the working musicians are. And that's been a little bit of a surprise to me. So I think it would behoove them to start a conversation with somebody like me or somebody that maybe somewhere else that they have a relationship with. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So I was wondering if you would mind telling about how your experience with Money Concepts and my team has been.
It's been great. Like he said, I think you're looking to help people develop things. I already kind of had a thing working at the time. But I was just kind of following the lead of heroes of mine, Gene and, people like that already do it. And so a big thing that John and his team helped me with was getting my 401k moved over and actually helping me understand the concept and the process, because I don't know that stuff. I'm a guitar player. I'm just not really, not my thing.
They don't teach you that in music school.
They don't teach you that in school at all.
Yeah,
they don't teach you anything worthwhile, really. Don't get me started on that. It's just you learn how to square dance instead of taxes, which is ridiculous. But, if you don't, one person can't know everything, so you get people who do. You get to know people who do know things that you don't and that you trust and can help you. Because that's the number one thing you hear is musicians getting ripped off. So you get people that you like and that you trust. And that's what John and his team have been. They really helped me with my 401k, getting into the Roth IRA, not the Hagar IRA. Nothing. Maybe the Hagar IRA would be better off than a Roth IRA, actually, with Sammy's pocketbook. Sammy Hagar's another guy who's done incredibly, makes way more money than he does. He gets paid great music, but he sold Cabo for, $1 billion or whatever he did. And now he's doing rum. And so, anyway, that guy's great. And I just work with them. If I have a question about something financial, I go to John. It's having like a support team there with that kind of a thing, because I don't know. I also have a great guy in town that I use for taxes and accounting. So I have two guys that I really, really trust that I can bounce things off of and help me get ready for, financial moves in the future.
Let me jump in here if I can. Part of it, and we had this conversation on another podcast John and I did, is it's that fear factor of making that initial step to realize that, okay, they can do something. Somebody can do something for me. Money Concepts, John Adams. And it's just putting that first foot forward to say, okay, was that a pretty big leap of faith for you?
No, I was already I needed it. I know I needed it. And I was already thinking, business at the time. I think I've kind of come a little ways since then, but at the time, trying to think more business minded as far as, I was kind of trying to separate music and my business side, but now I'm kind of like trying to get it all together.
Two plan A's.
Two plan A's, exactly, which I kind of just came up with that when I said it.
Going to be the title of this episode, let me tell you.
It is plan A squared. So no, when John we emailed me and I was like, well, I kind of need somebody that knows about this because I sure as hell don't. Not many do. Gene, Mick Jagger might be the only guys who do. So no, it was great. It was a welcome conversation, a welcome relationship from my point of view. It was great.
And I think the other thing too is when you talk about like Gene or Mick, they got people who have people. And that's really what you have to wrap your head around is you got to have someone, John, that can do this for you because...
Yeah, I just get everything in order and give it all to Alan. And he just go, here's my stuff. I did it to the best of my ability.
Here's my stuff.
Yeah.
You figure it out.
I try to have it as orderly as possible.
Yeah.
And then it isn't, it's kind of cleared up from my, cloudy view.
Well, it's like, for example, I've toyed, I probably told you this a couple times, if I ever get a little bit of time, I've toyed with trying to learn how to play guitar. And I'm not going to get a Roy Clark Big Notes songbook. I'm going to call Phil. So I think it kind of ties into what he said a minute ago. If he has a question about investments,
I'm going to look in the Roy Clark Big Songbook and answer John's question.
Yeah,
because
during teach him how to chicken pit.
Yeah, right. During your presentation, actually, you mentioned a book that I think that you learned from. You had a book of some kind where you first learned to play guitar that you learned some notes or something from, but it wasn't Roy Clark.
Mel Bay, probably the old Mel Bay chord book, probably. Yeah.
He mentioned Alan. That's Alan Mooney that came to the dinner.
Right.
You could not come to in mid-December.
Right.
You missed a great dinner, by the way.
Oh, Alan's a hoot, man. He's awesome.
No, I was saying my wife was there. She was a hoot, too, okay. But that's okay. So what's next for Phil Shouse here?
We've got, I head back out on the road with Ace Frehley first weekend of March. And we have 5 to 6 shows in March and in April. And then I think early May.
Is that all in the U.S.?
All in the U.S., yeah. And he has some European dates this summer, but I'm going to be with Accept. So I fly over there, I think early May. I think we're rocking until end of July.
Wow.
So hopefully that all stays scheduled. Fingers are crossed very tightly. So ready to get back over there. I love playing in Europe, period, but European festivals are especially fun.
Yeah, they are.
Plus, you're working weekends when you do the festival circuit, so you have a lot of days off. And with Accept, I have the freedom to kind of just go do what I want. So I'm going to get a lot of work done in Sweden this summer on my time off with the beverage company. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time doing that, maybe doing some acoustic shows, maybe doing a recording project over there as well. So I'll be going to Sweden a bunch.
How does one find that you keep I think you mentioned you keep your social media pages updated for your shows and things?
I'm pretty on top of it. Instagram is the with 2 E's, Philip Shouse. That's Philip with 1 L and S in front of house, the Philip Shouse. And it's just my name on Facebook, Philip Shouse. I'm rarely on Twitter. And that's about...
That makes 2 of us.
That's about it. Yeah, I don't really hammer that very hard at all. But those 2 are the ones to find out whatever you want to find out, really.
Very cool. Thank you for being on the show.
My pleasure, guys. Thanks very much for having me. Thank you.
John, always a pleasure.
Right back at you, Bob.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound design by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Fuson.